Hi people, Morino Reifenberg here again. In this video I'll be discussing something called an astral imprint. It's part or it's a haunting experience, or it's part of a haunting or an experience, paranormal experience that we as people classify as a haunting. This video is also going to be a short one because there's not a lot to say. So yeah, I'm just going to dive right into it as usual. Not all hauntings are hauntings, or better said, not all hauntings are from spirits directly. And by that, I simply mean that an astral imprint sometimes can be mistaken for a haunting or a place being haunted. And an astral imprint is simply remaining or remnants of energy, that astral energy, so spiritual energy that is left behind during or in the aftermath. Okay, not right after, but it can either be in the direct aftermath too, or years after, so a considerable period of time after a certain event or a situation has transpired. So after something has happened, something of an intense nature usually. Simple example that I can give is for example, people seeing a woman walk past them and in a certain hallway in a certain house. You know, what we see as a haunting. People say that the place is haunted because they see a woman coming down the stairs every Saturday evening, you name it. That does not always have to be the case with a haunting. Or, I mean, that does not have to be the case in the sense that it's a haunting, that's that dead woman, that's the spirit or the astral body of that deceased woman that at one point lived in the house. Okay, it can also be something along the lines of a remaining or remnant amount of energy that simply plays the action over and over again until the energy itself dissipates after time. It all depends on how strong the energy is still present. This is similar to playing a song in a loop format, for example. So putting a song on repeat to the point where it keeps playing over and over again. In the example that I just gave, let's just say for clarification, as a means of clarification, the woman died, she fell down the stairs. Okay? And a lot of people will automatically jump to the conclusion that the place is haunted in the sense that you know, that the spirit of that dead woman is haunting the place because they see her coming down the stairs on a certain day or at a certain time frame, you name it, periodically or intermittently. So at an unspecified date and or time. So at random. Regardless, doesn't have to be the case, like I said. That's what I mean by an astral imprint. Astral imprints are sometimes commonly mistaken for hauntings when that's not the case. It's just remaining energy. It's not the actual astral body or the astral, it's not the actual spirit of the woman, spirit. In an occult sense, it's the astral body. In any case, it's not that dead woman that's haunting the place. It's simply a remaining amount of energy that, like I said, it's a remaining amount of energy that simply keeps repeating the action over and over again as it transpired in the past. Let's just say, for example, that woman died, like I said, fell down the stairs, broke her neck, dead. And she had the habit of, her daily routine consisted of coming down the stairs at 8 a.m. every morning. There's a chance that you might see that at 8 a.m. her coming down the stairs. That's simply because her daily routine was so invested with energy, spiritual energy, so astral energy, to the point where people will see that, but it's not literally her. It's just remaining energy that has that's still lingering around, and it replaced the action that woman had as a habit, despite the fact that she's not there anymore. It's similar to someone being in a room and that person wearing a strong cologne, and even after that person has left the room, regardless of how long that person has left the room, whether it's a short or a long amount of time, remnants of that cologne, so a small amount of cologne still hangs in the air and you can sense it. It's a more mundane example that I can give is something I've experienced too in the past, way before I had any occult proficiency whatsoever as a magician or as an occultist. Two people, for example, having fought in a room, so not verbally, not physically. So two people simply fighting with each other or not speaking to each other or just had a heated argument. Usually you can feel the tension in the air. This is normal. This is something that a lot of people have experienced, and the first thing they say is you could cut the tension in the air with a knife. And that's normal because it's something that, especially if it's something that recently happened. Two people are not speaking to each other, the one has a problem with the other, they start yelling at each other, they start accusing each other of all kinds of nonsense, and after that they simply remain quiet. In my case, an example that I can give is years ago, I think a decade ago, a company that I worked at where two female employees got into some argument over something miscellaneous, something that really means nothing in general. But it was a heated argument nevertheless, and I could sense the difference. When I came at work, because it was my shift, I had the night shift, and I was supposed to relieve them of their duties. And the second I walked into the room, I immediately sensed, without even having to look at them, I sensed the tension in the air. I could feel the unpleasant level of energy that was in the air. Of course, it's nowhere near anything harmful as usually what you classify as a haunting. That energy is different altogether. But you get what I mean. That's another example. With astral imprints or with remnants of astral energy remaining, playing the action that transpired at some point in a loop or anything relating thereto, usually with astral imprints, they also can't hurt you. Okay? Another example is, for example, that you go into a house where at some point in time, whether it's 50 years ago or 5 years ago, a man killed his entire family and then turned a gun on himself, and you see, it's what you perceive as the spirit of that man at a certain time. For example, every Thursday at midnight, you see the spirit of that man walking towards his shotgun cabinet where he keeps his shotgun that he used to kill his entire family and himself eventually near the end. That's an astral imprint because, like I explained, it's just a remnant or a remaining amount of astral energy that repeats the action because of the intensity of said action that took place. Not an actual haunting. These astral imprints, generally speaking, almost in every case, can't hurt you. Okay, even if you're standing in front of the man as he walks past, he'll walk straight through you because, like I said, it's like music playing in a repeated loop in the background. It's literally like me putting on one album to play and putting it on loop and then leaving the room. The music is still going to repeat itself over and over again even when I get back, regardless of when I come back, whether it's tomorrow or after a week or after a month or a year even. It's still going to play and play and play over and over again. And usually with astral imprints, they also fade over time, as is the case with hauntings in general, because even spirits of genuine haunting, spirits that still linger around a certain area because they can't find rest, they can't move on to the afterlife, etc., but whatever, they also move on. They're capable of moving on after a while. It's similar to, in real life, me holding a grudge against someone. It all depends, okay? Some grudges can be held lifelong. That's also why some hauntings in some locations are long term. But in general, a lot of locations also move on. A lot of spirits in a lot of these locations move on or are capable of moving on after a while. Or they simply retreat to a different location where it's more quiet and where they are more at peace because of their clandestine nature. But yeah, that's in any case what an astral imprint is, and it is, if you want to call it that, it's a subsidiary of a haunting, okay? But it is a much less volatile and dangerous form of a haunting. Almost, like I said, in most cases it's absolutely harmless. It's literally just remaining energy of something usually terrible that happened there. For example, another last example that I'm going to give is someone killed himself by jumping off of the roof of a 100-story building, a skyscraper, whatever, you'll see what appears as the spirit of that dead person repeating the action, literally just walking across the rooftop and then jumping. And you're going to think to yourself, if you're on the street or something, hey, I saw someone jump, and you'll react the same way the average person is reacting. But when that person comes close to reaching the actual pavement, that person will disappear. Poof. And that's simply an astral imprint. The action or what happened there, that person committing suicide, was of such an intense nature, and that person felt so strongly about it that the sheer amount of astral energy generated is still lingering around, despite the fact that that person was capable of moving on. Another notable difference, lastly, that I'm going to mention is too, that usually with hauntings, it's like a person. It's not loop bound or anything like that. If a place is haunted and there is a dead person or some other spirit hanging around in a certain area, a certain confined space or area, or within the vicinity, then that person will be animate, whereas astral imprints are inanimate, similar to boulders and stones. They're simply fixed in their positions, and like I said, astral imprints are inanimate. They can't really hurt you. It's not something. It's just lingering energy. It's not something that's alive, to put it that way. But with a dead person or with any spirit, it's simply it is still an existing entity which will take notice of you if he or she or it wants to take notice of you, and can undertake action again if it's possible for him or her or it. But in any case, you'll notice that you'll notice that you're dealing with something that's alive. You're dealing with someone or something that is alive and that exists, so to speak, the same way that we as people exist. But with an astral imprint, it is literally almost like the wind, so to speak. It just blows by and it can't really hurt you. It's just an inanimate aspect of existence, if you will. That's it. Bye.